Hello and welcome to my review of the Tyranids Deathleaper for Warhammer 40,000 from Games Workshop. Now this model will cost you £37.50 and comprises of 44 plastic components. It comes with a 60mm round base, making it £7.50 more expensive than a normal Lictor model, and consisting of 12 fewer parts and 2 fewer options. It's not surprising that the Lictor model is my favourite model out of the new releases. However, this Deathleaper model is a unique monster, whereby you'd only really ever buy one, even more so as it only comes in one pose. The format of this review is as usual. I'll have a look at the model up close, we'll look at all the detail, I'll go through how easy or difficult it was to build. Then I will not show you any spare parts because there are none, but I will go straight on to the size comparisons with many of the Tyranid miniatures from the Leviathan box set, but also some of the other new releases. So without further ado, let's get straight in there with the detail of this model. Firstly, price point. It is quite high, you know, £7.50 more for fewer parts and fewer options than a base Lictor model. At first, I wasn't really a big fan, especially with this sort of skirt, this flesh skirt, whatever it is. I don't really know whether it serves a function, whether it can, you know, wrap its cloak thing over the top of it to shroud it, maybe. A bit like one of those cloaks from Lord of the Rings, I don't know, but I wasn't really a big fan. In a way, it kind of humanised a monstrous creature, and you know, Tyranid Xenos or anything but humanoid, aren't they? However, over time, I have grown to like this model a bit more. I like that it's kind of like a Lictor, but just, you know, scaled up a bit. Everything from the kind of oversized, hardened praying mantis type talons to these extra gribbly mouth feeder tendrils with spikes on, to the claws being bigger, the claws on the actual hands being bigger, the neck kind of bone area being slightly different, and it including a head tail, as if this tail wasn't enough, which is, you know, a fair bit longer than a normal Lictor's tail. The thing that bugs me really is the base. I guess it, you know, needed something to sort of stand on to raise its presence, but you know, at the end of the day, it's still kind of the same size as a Lictor. But two things make it that much bigger, make it that much, you know, significant, I guess, is the large base and the outstretched sort of talon. I used to like the base a lot, but I have gone off it recently. Not quite sure why. I think one of the reasons is because maybe that's the base that we kind of could have got for a Lictor. But overall, it was a bit tricky to build, especially this kind of skirt thing. You'll see there's some kind of, well, there's a little gap there that I need to put some green stuff in and wedge some green stuff in there as well. That was a bit tricky because they got you to kind of glue like 3 or 4 pieces at once in a short span. I would have preferred it if this whole piece was like one piece that you just, you know, glued into the back side. The head was fine, the mould lines weren't too bad. I was expecting loads of mould lines along these talons and on the arms and things, and the base wasn't too bad. I built it in a live stream. I'm sure there is a live stream somewhere on my live stream playlists where you can see me build this Deathleaper. So overall, I wasn't a fan of it initially, but it has grown on me, and I think it's an all right model now. But yeah, if you can get past that price point, which you're paying for, you know, kind of skirt tax and tactical pipe tax, maybe. But yeah, that's the Deathleaper. You'll build that very, very quickly, probably even quicker than the Lictor. There are no spare parts, so we'll go straight into the size comparisons and straight in there with the size comparison with you know, the model that I've been banging on about so far. which is the lictor. Right here you can just see, now I've built my lictor in sort of like the smallest pose possible, crouching, about to pounce, you know, skulking, hulking, whatever, skulking I think, through the shadows, or you know, stalking its prey, what you'd expect it to do. It's a shame we don't get a lictor model that is sort of just sat there camouflaged, because that would open up so many possibilities for painting and things. But anyway, size wise, as you can see, you know, the Deathleaper is fully stretched. The talons though are similar size, but it's this extra hardened area on the top that is curled, and as you can see here on the one of its elbows, it just ends bluntly, and I think that's a missed opportunity. It would have been nice if it ended with a claw for the lictor. I know I'm talking a bit more about the lictor than the Deathleaper, but you know, just a mini kind of version of this. I think this is quite large, but look at that, functionally grabs onto its prey, and you know, with that scissor action. Whereas this, yeah, I guess, but it would have to be in here where there's lots of serrations, but there's no kind of like stopper there. The claws for the lictor are kind of like hands, but as you can see, the Deathleaper has fewer fingers. Yeah, I don't kind of get that. It's, you know, got the 2 fingers and a thumb, whereas the lictor has got 3 fingers and a thumb. I think it would have been better if this was a finger, if it had the same number. Feet, the claws are slightly bigger, the feet are slightly bigger on the Deathleaper. As I say, the neck kind of collarbone carapace it's wider. I don't know whether that helps it, but the bone area is wider. And of course the mandibles. I mean, the mandibles on this lictor look very similar to a Genestealer one, but on the Deathleaper they're much bigger. They've got spikes on the end. It's got this tail, this head tail with a spike. The tail doesn't look that functional on the lictor. I was expecting a longer tail, whereas this one sweeps all the way past its feet. This one might do, but not that far. So they're the main differences between both of these. You know, in terms of size, in terms of larger aspects and things, you know, it's whether you can justify this costing almost 30% more. Anyway, that's it compared to the lictor. Compared to the Von Ryan Leaper, which looks bigger than the lictor at the moment, that's where it stands. I think the Deathleaper, you know, commanding like 6, 9, 15 Von Ryan Leapers would look awesome, have kind of like a lictor Leaper army, I guess. So they're the sort of lictor family, you might say. Comparing the Deathleaper to the Neuro lictor, which is the other one, which is kind of a bit bigger than the lictor. Yeah, it's similar, isn't it? Similar sort of size, height, but just smaller. So if you're going to get a Deathleaper, it's going to be the biggest kind of lictor model you'll get out of the 3. But yeah, no eyes that you can see of with the Neurolictor, and the arms are a bit fragile. They just ask them to be cut off, whereas this one is, yeah, a bit different. Compared to the Neuro Tyrant, and this is probably a good comparison. Neuro Tyrant is also on a big kind of pipe scenic base, and is, I say taller, but not including the talon there. But that's probably the best sort of comparison I can make in terms of size, really, between them. So if you've got one of these from the Leviathan box set, then yeah, it's going to be similar. Just a couple more comparisons, of course. I've got the Tyranid Prime, and then I've got the Screamer Killer, which of course we know is a massive model in this new Tyranid range. But even the Deathleaper is way, way taller with that talon. Height-wise, its head is very similar height too. So again, if you've got a Screamer Killer, you'll know how big the Deathleaper will be from this. And then a couple of smaller miniatures. I do have a Termagant and a Hormagaunt. I haven't yet built the Genestealers, but I'm getting there, and that's where it stands with those. So it's going to be, you know, if you've got big bugs, it's going to be kind of like a medium size, almost large model. in your Tyranid force. Definitely a fair bit of presence. I do have the Norn Emissary as well that I built in another live stream, completed it. And yeah, it's not quite as big as the Norn Emissary. The Norn Emissary is you know, almost double the size of the Screamer Killer. It's the biggest release in this new range that they've done, and one of the biggest sort of, well, Tyranid monstrous creatures that they've done for quite some time. I'll try and fish out the Tyrannofex to compare it with this at some point, but that gives you an idea of where the Deathleaper stands. Nowhere near as big as the Emissary. Compared to some Imperium miniatures then, so I've got a Ballistas Dreadnought and a Terminator. You know, I think they're quite nicely sized between Terminators and Deathleapers. You can sort of imagine them getting into a bit of a scrap, and the Ballistas Dreadnought is, yeah, well, it's a Redemptor sized Dreadnought, isn't it? So it's going to be very big. And the final size comparison I like to make is just with my 3 typical miniatures I like to compare. So we've got a standard Space Marine, Slight Marbo, and a Primaris. So if you're going up against some Primaris, you'll know that this thing is going to, you know, absolutely dwarf Primaris Space Marines. Maybe that's a better sort of size comparison there. The Primaris comes up to maybe the knee of the Deathleaper. Okay, so you've reached the part of my review where I will go through all of the rules for this Deathleaper. You'll find the rules in your brand new 10th edition codex, or maybe you won't. But if you choose to use the codex, just obviously be aware that it is in alphabetical order instead of unit order. And the points cost, they still haven't worked out a way to put the points cost on the data sheets themselves yet, even though they used to back in the day, and they'll probably bring it back in the future and call it a feature. The points cost for the Deathleaper will be 75 points. That means it's 5 points more than a normal Lictor, and we'll go through some of the differences. So its stat line reads, it's a movement of 8 inches, toughness 6, save of 3+, with a 4+ invulnerable. It has 7 wounds, leadership is 7+, and objective control is 1. It's equipped with melee weapon, Lictor Claws and Talons, which are a range of melee. It's precision as well, in brackets afterwards. 6 attacks, weapon skill 2+, strength 7, AP -2, damage 2. That's quite solid, you know. It's not going to be the best against Space Marines, but, you know, it is going to be hitting, and there is a decent number of attacks, and, you know, you've got the AP -2 and you're doing 2 damage per hit as well. So, yeah, it can take out mediumly armoured things, and definitely, you know, softer, squidgier things like, I don't know, Cadian Guard with the like toughness 3 or whatever. So that's quite nice. Abilities, fights first, infiltrators, lone operative, and stealth. Faction is synapse, feeder tendrils. Each time this model destroys an enemy character model, you gain 1 command point. Very useful. Fear of the Unseen, it's an aura ability. While an enemy unit is within 6 inches of this model, worsen the leadership characteristic of models in that unit by 1. In addition, in the battle shock step of your opponent's command phase, if such an enemy unit is below its starting strength, it must take a battle shock test. That's pretty good. It's, you know, going to strike fear into enemy models. Unit composition, 1 Deathleaper. It's an epic hero. Of course, it's equipped with Lictor Claws and Talons, and the model cannot be your warlord. Keywords, infantry, character, epic hero, great devourer, vanguard, invader, Deathleaper, and Tyranids. So how does it compare to a Lictor? Well, it's got a better save at 3+ instead of 4+. It has its invulnerable save as well, whereas the Lictor doesn't have any invulnerable save. It has 1 extra wound, but it has exactly the same Lictor Claws and Talons. It also has the same feeder tendrils, but instead of Fear of the Unseen, the Lictor model has once per battle round you can target 1 model with this ability with a rapid ingress stratagem for 0 command points. So I think 5 points extra is worth it. You know, even for that invulnerable save, a better save, more wounds, and the Fear of the Unseen, It's a better lictor. I just wish like the actual weapons itself were better. Something to do with that head tail with the talon on it, or something to do with the talons on its hands. I just think it's missing something. Maybe an extra ability to do with its skirt. Maybe that ties into the fear of the unseen, but maybe the invulnerable save is something to do with that. Who knows? But I just think it's missing just something, one extra thing. Maybe bump its points cost to like 80 or 90 even. But as it stands, but yeah, it's a better lictor, and it's up to you whether you think it's a better looking model than the lictor, or do you want to have the other options? I mean, if you were against me and you had a Tyranid army and you didn't have the Deathleaper, but you had a lictor and you wanted to use it as a Deathleaper, I'd have no issues whatsoever with that. What do you guys think of the Deathleaper? Are you a fan? Is it a win or is it a bin? Please do put your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. I love reading them. Thank you for joining me today. Thank you for watching. For the Norn Queen.